So buildings are collapsing, and more will be collapsing in the future. This is all in the news, right? Where they just demolished a building today. Um, the death toll is around 30, but a lot are still missing. Of course, they could be snowbirds in someplace else. Who knows? Um, the simple fact is, it was built on South Florida beach, and there's hundreds of these kind of mega buildings on the beach, 12 stories in this particular case. And of course, there was bad maintenance involved. But the underlying principles that could create a cascading effect of buildings collapsing is there. I mean, the salt water, of course, salt breezes kind of exacerbate a lot of these. Like in this case, it was a swimming pool that somehow was the chlorine was also generating a quicker catalyst towards decay. But that's the problem with man-made structures, is that on some level we always think we're God and we can create things that are better than nature. There are many mega structures that are being planned. In a worst case scenario, the world, let's say all the ice were to melt. That's a worst case scenario. So that means everything south of, Virginia would be underwater. Places like Manhattan, of course. And I mean, all over the world, Europe would be highly taken care of as well. There's large parts of the Middle East. India, Bangladesh will disappear completely. Australia will be cut in half to some degree. These are the worst case scenario. We can't think in those terms, of course. But of course, if you don't plan for the worst, that's when you get hit. For instance, in Oregon, a lot of deaths because of high heat, because their infrastructure was not planned for high heat. So that when everybody turns on the air conditioner, their power grid fails. And of course, in Texas, there was an enormous problem this year. So there's problems everywhere that are not being foreseen because people are sticking their heads in the sand. If you stick your head in the sand, likely a building will fall on you. So the point is any of those people in those surfside condos are probably sweating bricks because they know that their investment's going to go down the tubes. There was a show on Netflix with Sissy Spacek where she sold her hotel, and they backed out because they know Key West will be underwater soon. I mean, this all sounds very silly because we all live in a world that seems very permanent and very normal. But of course, we don't really clue into how the changes happen slowly. I mean, Miami has been having enormous problems with their streets and salt water in their streets for quite a while. It's happening. It's happening, and buildings will be collapsing left and right. And Manhattan will be underwater, but of course, there's a lot of money in Manhattan, so they can, build a gigantic sandbags around Manhattan to save it. I know there's enormous mega structures that are going to be built there, and Japan and Singapore and all these places with lots of water. So the engineers believe they understand the problems ahead. But the average person, they got their head in the sand.